In this second brief demo, I want to show you a little bit about the zero client and the thin client computing. Let's see here. Let's go over to my MEM2 server. Again, don't worry about all of the plumbing under the hood here. I just want you to get a feel for what's possible. Windows Server in Microsoft parlance has a service called Remote Desktop Services. And actually, this is the web server we're looking at right now. Let me come over to the Remote Desktop Services proper. And what Remote Desktop Services enables you to do is create a virtual desktop infrastructure, a VDI, where you're streaming desktops across the network to your thin client or potentially zero client users. And what's even neater here, let me go to my remote apps, is that you can actually install applications on the server, on the remote desktop server, and stream those across the network to your users. I'll give you a really good use case. Maybe a business has a line of business application that the user needs a web browser, but it only works in an old version of Internet Explorer like IE8. Well, meanwhile, you've upgraded all your users to Windows 8.1 or Windows 10. How can you allow users to still use the old version of IE? Well, you can deploy that old version of IE as a remote app. It actually runs from over the network, so you don't have to actually install anything on the client device. To test this out, let's go over to another machine, and let me refresh my browser. I've made a browser-based connection to my remote desktop server. I'm going to say this is a private computer, and I'm going to authenticate with my username and password. We'll sign in. All right, it tells us that we're connected, and there are those apps that you saw just a moment ago. So by clicking Calculator here, I'm actually streaming this app from over the network. It allows you to solve compatibility problems. It allows you as a systems administrator to manage licenses, and also gives you the ability to solve these compatibility problems. So anyway, this calculator is actually running on the remote server, but the end user wouldn't necessarily need to know that. The other thing you can do with thin clients with Windows here is go to connect to a remote PC, and this can create what's called a remote desktop connection with a remote system. This is the remote desktop that I was talking about. And notice you can actually connect clipboard and printers in that session. So after I put in my username and password, we're going over the network and we're going to retrieve a desktop session from my MEM2 server. And there we go. This is now the desktop that we saw in the previous computer. And notice that it's running in a window. It's pretty cool, isn't it? That's called virtual desktop infrastructure, and it goes along with thin client and potentially zero client computing.